So you're thinking about building a website. It seems like it should be simple, but the truth is, the choices you make right at the start, they can literally define your entire digital future. So today, we're going to map out this whole complex world. Let's dive in. Yeah, how hard can it be, right? But if you've ever tried, you know exactly what happens next. That that wave of just, whoa, where do I even start? It's completely overwhelming. The number of options out there is just paralyzing. And for every question you answer, it feels like 10 more pop up. And this is exactly why it's so overwhelming. You're just trying to get a site online, and suddenly you're drowning in a sea of jargon. Wix or WordPress. What in the world is a headless CMS? And then come the acronyms, CI/CD, APIs. It's a total maze. But don't worry, we're going to walk through it together. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with your very first big decision. Then we'll get into the pro-level stuff like headless CMS and something called vendor lock-in. After that, we'll look at how the pros tame all this complexity. And finally, we'll figure out what kind of creator you are and which path is the right one for you. All right, first up, look, it doesn't matter if you're a total beginner or a seasoned pro. Everyone, and I mean everyone, starts with this one fundamental choice. It's this core trade-off, and it's going to pop up again and again in every other decision you make. It's all about finding that balance between simplicity and control. And, the best way to see this trade-off in action is to look at two of the biggest names out there, Wix and WordPress. Think of Wix as the guided tour. It's an all-in-one package designed to get you up and running fast and easy. WordPress? Well, that's more like being handed the keys to the entire factory. It's this open source powerhouse that gives you almost limitless control. But, of course, with all that power comes a lot more responsibility. Okay, let's break this down, because what's really important here are the long-term consequences of that first choice. Yeah, Wix is super easy to get started with, but look at that last row, data portability. You're basically locked into their platform. It's hard to leave. Now, WordPress has a steeper learning curve, you've got to set up your own hosting, but it can scale to a massive enterprise-level site. And, the big one, you have full ownership of your data. You can pack up your entire website and move it to a new host whenever you want. So that's the real question you have to ask yourself. Are you building for today, or are you building for 5 years from now? So as your project gets bigger and more serious, that initial choice starts to evolve. The conversation moves beyond these simple all-in-one platforms and into the world of more advanced professional architecture. And that's where we meet the headless CMS. So what on earth is a headless CMS? It sounds complicated, but the concept is actually pretty cool. Imagine your content lives in a central kitchen. That's the back end, the CMS, where you write your articles, upload your images, all that stuff. Now the head is the front end, the part the user sees. In a traditional system, the kitchen and the dining room are attached. But with a headless system, they're separate, decoupled. This means your one central kitchen can send content out to any dining room you want. Your main website, a mobile app, a digital kiosk, even a smartwatch. It's all delivered through something called an API. And here's the thing, even when you get to this professional level, that exact same trade-off we talked about, ease versus control, it shows up all over again. Take Sanity, for example. It's a managed service. They take care of all the complicated infrastructure stuff for you. It's perfect for content teams that just want to, create content. Then you have Strappy. It's open source, you host it yourself. This gives developers total granular control over everything, the data, the hosting, but yeah, they're the ones responsible for managing it all. This whole conversation about control and ownership leads us to a really, really critical idea. This is something every single creator needs to think about, especially if you're building a project for the long haul. And that idea is avoiding vendor lock-in. So what is vendor lock-in? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's when you become so dependent on a single company's product or service that you're essentially trapped. You can't switch to another provider without facing huge costs or a massive headache. And this is a huge risk. Why? Because it means the future of your project isn't really in your hands anymore. It's tied to the fate of some other company. And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. It describes the absolute worst-case scenario. Imagine the company you rely on goes out of business, or they get bought out, or they just decide to discontinue the product you've built your entire project on. Suddenly, you're left with what they call an orphan system. No more support, no more security updates, nothing. Just a massive, expensive, and super risky migration project staring you in the face. This is exactly why the debate between proprietary and open source is so important. With a proprietary system, everything, the code, the support, the roadmap for new features, it's all controlled by one single company. If they go down, you're in trouble. But with open source, the code itself belongs to a huge global community. If the company you hired for support disappears overnight, there are dozens of others you can call. The survival of the platform isn't tied to the fate of just one company. It's a huge difference. Okay, so let's say you've picked your technology. Now what? The next big question is, how do you actually manage all this complexity? How do you build and maintain a modern website without, constantly breaking it? Well, this is where the professionals have a secret weapon, a super rigorous workflow. This workflow isn't a straight line, it's a cycle. And it's usually broken down into 4 phases. You've got setup, where you lay the groundwork. Then there's build, which is the day-to-day coding and creating. Launch is, well, getting it out into the world. And finally, you have manage, which is all about the ongoing upkeep and making things better over time. And the engine that makes this whole professional workflow hum, it's something called CI/CD. It stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. Think of it as an automated quality control factory for your code. It's a set of practices that automatically check and test every single change, making sure everything is deployed reliably. It's basically the safety net that lets development teams move really fast without breaking everything. So how does this pipeline actually work in practice? It's pretty slick. A developer makes a change to the code and pushes it up. That simple action automatically kicks off a whole process. The code is built, and a bunch of automated tests run to catch any bugs right away. If all the tests pass, it gets sent to a staging site, like a private dress rehearsal. Once a human gives it the final okay, poof, it's automatically released to the live website for everyone to see. And the whole time, the system is watching. If it detects a problem, it can automatically roll back to the previous version. It's not just a process, it's a whole system for making sure things don't go wrong. Now, remember our Headless CMS? Well, in that world, this kind of automation is even more crucial. Since your front end and your back end are 2 separate things, you absolutely need a system to make sure they're always speaking the same language. This is where the real pros use clever techniques like contract testing. It's basically a way to make sure that the API, the glue that holds the 2 pieces together, never breaks in an unexpected way. Phew. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. We've gone from the simplest drag-and-drop builders all the way to these complex professional workflows. So let's bring it all back home. It's time to ask the most important question of all. What kind of creator are you, and which of these paths makes the most sense for your project? Let's boil it all down into a simple decision framework. Look, if your number one goal is just speed and simplicity, you need to get online now, then an all-in-one builder like Wix is probably a great choice. If what you really care about is flexibility and owning your data for the long haul, then you're looking at an open-source platform like WordPress. Now, if you're on a professional team that needs amazing content tools but doesn't want to deal with server headaches, a managed headless CMS like Sanity is perfect. And finally, for those teams who need and want total, absolute control over every single technical detail, a self-hosted headless system like Strapi is the way to go. So here's the bottom line. The technology you choose isn't just some minor technical detail. It's a declaration of your goals. It fundamentally shapes what you can build, how quickly you can grow, and how much freedom you'll have later on. Building a website isn't a one-off task. It's a long-term commitment. So the real question is, what kind of future are you building for yourself?